This is a story rooted in the burgeoning dreams of a mid-19th century America, bustling with technological promise, entrepreneurial vision, and transformative philanthropy. This is an appropriate starting point for the story of the Bishop Parker Foundation, which has made an indelible mark on Manatee County as it honors its namesakes in arts, culture, education, environment, health, human services, and animal welfare. We invite you to join us as we share the fascinating journey of three rare individuals: Lillian Patty Huntington Bishop, Edward Ned Bishop, and Mary E. Parker. Through the years, their special relationship, bound by a deep desire to make a difference in the lives of others through selfless giving, has helped shape the city of Bradenton and its surrounding communities. Their impact will be felt long into the future. Inspired by the philanthropic legacy of its founders, the Bishop Parker Foundation supports nonprofit and public partners who collaborate to advance the Manatee County community for current and future generations. Since its inception, the Foundation's core values remain central to what the Bishops and Mary Parker believed in: community building, stewardship, and kindness. This foundation continues to envision what the Bishops and Mary Parker hoped for: a thriving and connected community where everyone has the opportunity for a healthy and fulfilling life.
My aunt, Mary Parker, was a nurse in New York City, and she moved to Bradenton to be close to her brother, Leslie Parker, and his family. She went to work for a private nursing service because there was no hospital here in Bradenton. At that time, Ned Bishop had a rheumatic heart since childhood, and he had contracted the flu. So Patty Bishop had hired nursing care 24/7 to come to her home and take care of Ned, and my aunt was one of those nurses. And after they met her, they adored her. So they asked her to live with them full-time and be just solely his nurse. It took a lot of convincing for her to agree, but she did finally agree to their arrangement. And they grew to love her very much, and she was totally devoted to them. And they just adored each other.
Today, the impact of the Bishops and Mary Parker can be felt far and wide around Manatee County. Here are just some of the ways their charitable contributions and steadfast support have changed life in Bradenton and beyond. The Bishop Museum and Planetarium, the Parker Manatee Rehabilitation Habitat, the Bishop Animal Shelter, Art Center Manatee, Manatee Players, Manatee Memorial Hospital, the Bradenton Yacht Club, the Manatee River Youth Sailing Program, Sneed Island Boat Works, the State College of Florida Nursing Program, and so much more. This saga traces back to 1854, when a young couple from England, John Huntington and his wife Jane, settled in Cleveland, Ohio. A brilliant businessman and inventor, John partnered with John D. Rockefeller to ship oil throughout the U.S. His boundless philanthropy eventually led to the founding of the world-famous Cleveland Museum of Art and the Cleveland Foundation. Before his death, John arranged for generous bequests to his grandchildren, including Patty. This set the wheels in motion for what would become a legacy of life-changing generosity. John, you see, had a son named William, who became a noted businessman in his own right. William was a community leader, an avid yachtsman as well, becoming known locally as Commodore Huntington. He would sponsor boat races to engage the youth of the community. He was also the proud father of Patty Huntington. She would inherit her father's love of boating, which continued throughout her lifetime. Eventually, Patty would meet a young man named Ned Bishop. He was an auto enthusiast and also an avid boater. The Bishop family were the proprietors of the Bishop Babcock Company, which produced soda fountains and plumbing fixtures in Cleveland, Ohio. Ned and Patty married in 1914 and escaped the cold Ohio winters to settle in the tropical climate of Bradenton, Florida, a very small town at the time. They frequently spent the hot summers in a more temperate climate of Annapolis, Maryland, but their boundless generosity as Bradenton residents would profoundly enhance the city and its culture. To understand life as it exists today in Bradenton and Manatee County, and gain a full picture of three people who enriched the area, this is a story worth knowing. Our hope here is to bring Ned and Patty Bishop to life through recollections of people who crossed paths with theirs, and that of Mary Parker, a graduate nurse from New York, whom the Bishops met through a nursing agency in Bradenton. More than just a nursing companion, Mary soon took on the role of their household manager, and eventually became part of their family through a formal adoption. She was completely devoted to Ned and Patty, from the time they met through Ned's passing in 1962 and Patty's in 1972. Their special bond and collective influence lives on today through the combination of the Bishop Foundation, established in 1953, and the Mary E. Parker Foundation, which she established in 1986. Mary's generosity matched that of the dear friends who changed her life, Ned and Patty. She gave selflessly to the community each year until her death in 2020, at the age of 108. The giving from all three continues today through the Bishop Parker Foundation. Now, join us on this journey back through the years as we honor three truly remarkable people.
At the time that the Bishops came down, Sarasota was evolving also, and there were a lot of people from the Northeast who were discovering this area, and boats, with ships and yachts were prevalent here because of the ability to travel around Florida. The Bishops had a yacht that was long, over 100 feet, that would be, one of the big attractions actually for people in Manatee County to see.
When Ned and Patty arrived in 1914, the recently established riverfront town of Bradenton was just beginning to develop into a modern city with many opportunities to support its civic growth. Through the years, they would generously support this need. Among the Bishop's major contributions was joining Dr. Sugg in establishing a hospital, originally named Veterans Memorial Hospital in 1953. Today, it is known as Manatee Memorial Hospital.
As the community grew, they saw the need for health care for the citizens of Manatee County. Manatee County historically has grown because of veterans. World War I and World War II had many bases that were set up in Florida for training. They set up these bases in Florida for training because the weather was better to train year-round. Understanding that there were many veterans here, World War II veterans, the Bishops recognized that not only the community, but also veterans needed a hospital, and it needed to be larger than the Bradenton General Hospital on 9th Street could hold.
Well, I was born in Bradenton, 1938. Went to school here through the junior high, went to school in New Jersey, and then to University of Florida, and came home and practiced law. When I was young, Manatee County was largely an agricultural community. It was a great place to grow up. Downtown Bradenton, quite frankly, until they started adding the hotels and developing the waterfront somewhat, was very much like it is today. Streets are laying out, and they have rehabbed some of the old buildings, and then, of course, the courthouse was always where it is today. I really grew up with Ned and Patty Bishop. They were two of my parents' very best friends. They were such generous people. One of the favorite pastimes the Bishops helped develop were the Manatee Players. My parents were both very active with the Manatee Players, so I grew up always knowing them and working with them and supporting the things that they supported. They were just such wonderful, civic-minded people. Mary Parker was it. She was just such a wonderful human being, and she loved the Bishops.
I grew up here, born and raised here in Bradenton, and the Bishops were a known entity of benevolence within the community. I was part of Mary Parker's racing crew on her sailboat, which was a lot of fun. Probably the first real exposure I had to the Bishops was at Sneed Island Boat Works, which one time they owned, and then they were able to make a long-term arrangement with the Alderman family that still owns it today. And that's where they kept all their boats. They were old enough that they were no longer active, but they weren't about to get rid of any of Mr. Bishop's boats. There was a big metal shed over the water in the basin at Sneed Island Boat Works that was absolutely chock full of their yachts. And as a young guy, in a 9-foot dinghy with a 1.5 horsepower engine, I would end up over there exploring around on all of those beautiful old wooden yachts. They kind of helped foster my love of boats.
The love of sailing, shared by the Bishops and Mary Parker, ultimately led to the Bishops' contribution in helping to found the Bradenton Yacht Club in 1946. In addition, Ned Bishop was instrumental in building the Sneed Island Boat Works into a modern national model for such facilities, leading to the Westinghouse and Guggenheim boats being birthed there. During the Depression, Ned also provided much-needed employment at the boat works. Gary Alderman, owner of Sneed Island Boat Works, remembers how his grandfather Jim Alderman was the first mate on a yacht owned by businessman William Selby, husband of Marie Selby. When Ned Bishop purchased this yacht, it resulted in a close relationship between the two.
Mr. Bishop and Mr. Selby were friends. Mr. Bishop came down to look at the boat and decided he wanted to buy it. And when Mr. Bishop came and looked at it, they made the deal on the boat. He didn't know my grandfather, but I think they just hit it off. He says, I'm going to buy the boat, but I want Jim Alderman to come with the boat. So that's how my grandfather started in working for Mr. and Mrs. Bishop.
The appeal of boat racing was particularly strong for Mary Parker, who enjoyed coming out to the Bradenton Yacht Club with Gary Alderman's father to watch races.
She just loved that. She did that until she was probably 96, 97 years old. She didn't go on the boat with us, but Dad took her on his boat, and then we would come back in to the yacht club and we would all go to dinner, and she loved that. She looked forward to it every Thursday during the racing season.
Those dinners were memorable for more than simply the cuisine. Gary recalls how guests were assigned club numbers with which to charge their meals. Mary was, in fact, member number 2, with Ned being number 1 and Patty his first mate. The truth is, Ned demanded that Mary be given a membership even though, at the time, women were not allowed to become members, and she treasured that number 2 membership.
She loved that dinner. It was just good conversations. It was just about how your kid's doing and that sort of thing. And then she had her dog, Annie, and she always had stories about Annie. And then at the end of dinner, the ladies always liked Whispers, which were ice cream, liqueur, more of a dessert, but everybody had to have a Whisper.
In addition to their towering philanthropic stature in the community, the Bishops and Mary Parker enjoyed giving on a small scale as well, like at Halloween for neighborhood children.
The other exposure that I had to the Bishops personally was I grew up on 26th Street down near the river, and the Bishops' home was probably around 51st, 52nd on Riverview Boulevard, so 25 blocks away. But it was the place to go on Halloween. Everyone made a beeline to the Bishops on Halloween because they would put on a dramatic show. Brown paper bags full of good things, lots of candy and everything. But you had to be prepared when you rang the doorbell because you never knew what was going to happen when it opened. I can remember Mary Parker is a absolutely wonderful Wicked Witch, And I look back and I think of how many times I rode all the way out of our neighborhood and down Riverview Boulevard just to go to their house on that night.
If you could talk your parents over to the Bishops, you could go and there would always be other kids, and you could get in the line and go to the front door. When I went, they had like a butler type guy. He came out with a silver tray covered in candy bars. And these were the full-size candy bars, which back then were probably even bigger. This was the jackpot. But he said you could only take one. I mean, they had no children. They could have had the lights off, right? Don't come here. But they wanted the kids to come there. And then you got a great reward for going.
We would go down the street to the Bishop's house to trick or treat. I should call it an estate. Back in the day, that property was, it was just awesome. We would walk into the property and Mrs. Bishop was, instead of handing out candy, she was handing out silver dollars.
One person well acquainted with the Bishops and Mary Parker was a former junior high school teacher who moved to Bradenton in 1950.
The Bishop name, I heard it all the time, and when I had my first child was down at Bradenton General Hospital, which was right down on 9th Avenue and 12th. Someone said, Miss Bishop is here today, and I later found out, and I asked my doctor about it, and he said, oh, she's down here a lot because she helps Dr. Sugg. And I saw her one time looking very efficient and helping Dr. Sugg. Miss Bishop, but that was what she enjoyed doing.
Dr. Sugg was a Tennessee physician who relocated to Bradenton in 1929 and later made a lasting mark on the city. His greatest contribution was with the South Florida Museum and Bishop Planetarium, which he helped to establish in 1947, and Manatee Memorial Hospital, which he helped to establish in 1953. He was a close friend of the Bishops and supported Patty's interest in the Manatee Players and the local SPCA, Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals.
Ms. Bishop would probably say the SPCA with her love of animals that she had. Well, certainly the museum, because this museum has just been wonderful, and it's been handled well, and it's been run well, and I really think probably this is the greatest gift because it's ongoing.
Indeed, their contributions include support of the Bishop Animal Shelter, SPCA of Manatee County. What's more, the Bishop Museum of Science and Nature has been a treasured gift to the community since opening on the Bradenton Pier shortly after the end of World War II as the South Florida Museum. In 1949, it also became known as the home to Baby Snoots, a West Indian manatee, later shortened to Snooty. During that time, the museum emerged as a leading cultural organization in the community, providing educational programs and field trips to hundreds of thousands of students through the decades. In 1966, the museum opened at its present site on 10th Street West, and Mrs. Bishop funded the Bishop Planetarium in honor of her husband, giving visitors an additional opportunity to learn through programming that coincided with early space exploration. The museum was completely renovated in 1998, only to be devastated by an electrical fire in 2001. Only a year later, the museum reopened with new, state-of-the-art history exhibits, followed by a new education wing which opened in 2004 and a brand new planetarium in 2005. In 2016, marking the South Florida Museum's 70-year history, it was renamed the Bishop Museum of Science and Nature, honoring the Bishop's legacy. That legacy also extended to Patty Bishop's love of animals.
The dog that the Bishops had when I was a child was Conchita. It was a little Chihuahua, and it went everywhere with Patty. And as Patty was older and had health issues, that dog was her constant companion. And when Conchita was no longer around, she got another Chihuahua named Baby. And Baby was in her lap all the time or in her arms. I can't remember the dog even being on the floor.
Even squirrels in the yard won the heart of Patty Bishop.
Every time that you went to the house, there were a jillion squirrels at the front door. They fed them all the time. And I lived one door over, and you had to be a squirrel lover. I'm sure I had squirrels on my property, and I'm sure a lot of them were headed to the Bishop house for peanuts or whatever. Yeah, they had a great love for animals.
The Bishop's love of animals transcended a lot of things. When I was growing up here, there were not very many doctors. My brother-in-law was only the second ophthalmologist in Manatee County. The Bishops had a group of doctors that they considered friends and supported, which helped the whole community in various ways. There's a story that I always loved that I heard as a young person. The one particular doctor got a phone call at home during dinner from Mrs. Bishop asking him to come to the house as quickly as he could. And he got there, and the patient was a squirrel that had hurt himself. And that didn't go over real big with the doctor, but I think he did the job.
Mary Parker had a powerful impact of her own on Bradenton and Greater Manatee County, with gifts supporting myriad organizations and institutions, from Manatee Memorial Hospital to the Manatee Performing Arts Center to nursing education at State College of Florida. Central to everything in her life, though, was the relationship she had with the Bishops.
Mary Parker became the daughter that the Bishops never had. She was their family. And so Patty wanted to adopt my aunt, but because of the legal process, and if you have living parents, they have to sign, my aunt asked to wait as long as her mother was living, because by this time her father had passed away many years ago. So Patty adopted my aunt for a couple of reasons. One, she wanted her and the world to know what their relationship was. And also, it's a legal issue, because when you have that kind of financial basis, people come out of the woodwork. And she wanted to make sure that my aunt was the heir.
Mary Gerald, who, like her aunt, is a nurse, cared for her great-aunt late into her long life. She holds fond memories of the Bishops as well.
The Bishops that I knew were very warm and compassionate people. They loved animals, and they were very compassionate toward everyone that I ever knew they had contact with. They were very giving, and they left behind a foundation and a legacy to support the community of Manatee, of which they loved. And Mary Parker, my aunt, sole purpose in life was to continue their legacy. Patty had talked about her grandfather, John Huntington, and how much he had influenced her life and her philosophy in life of appreciating everything they had and every gift they had and wanting to share it with as many people as they could.
That legacy of giving has changed the face of Bradenton and Manatee County over the years. In fact, it's hard to imagine what the area would have been like without them.
Bradenton would be a much different town, city, and destination if it had not been for the philanthropy of the Bishops, Mary Parker, Dr. Sugg, etc. I say that because of this museum and the legacy that this museum has and the impact that it has played in this city for decades. So I would say that Bradenton would be just a bump in the road if it hadn't been for the philanthropy of those three individuals.
Without the Bishop's support, and with Mary Parker's also, this community would look so much different. Last night, I went to the Manatee Performing Arts Center for a performance that has become such an important center in this community because it brings people together.
I see their legacy as very unique. Manatee was very fortunate that they located here. I see it a little bit as a comparison to like the Ringlings in Sarasota. It showed that people of that era saw the importance of sharing their wealth with the community. It would be hard to outdo them. And so I think their legacy was just how much they loved the community and gave to it. And they adopted the community. And it was very fortunate that we had them.
The Bishops and Mary Parker provided a wonderful example to those in our community who have similar resources and a care and concern for future generations. By establishing a foundation that will exist in perpetuity, they have ensured that the community that they love so very much and the people that they cared about will continue to have resources supporting them for now and future generations. Anybody else who is considering this kind of philanthropic gift could use the Bishops and Mary Parker as an example for what a difference can be made by that thoughtful philanthropy. Without their vision, without their care and concern for Manatee County, we would not have this terrific resource that will exist in perpetuity to permanently support nonprofits and public organizations that are collaborating to make Manatee County a wonderful place to live.
In a quiet town by the Gulf Coast breeze, two hearts gave more than the eye could see. Ned and Patty, with grace and care, built a future from love they'd share. From Cleveland roots to Bradenton skies, they planted hope where dreams could rise. A museum, a shelter, a stage set bright. They lit the way with a gentle light. Oh, the Bishop name still echoes strong in every child, in every song. Science, nature, healing hands, a legacy that proudly stands. And Mary Parker carried it on, a nurse, a friend, a guiding dawn. Together they gave, they didn't boast. They built the soul of Florida's coast. A planetarium to touch the stars, a manatee named Snooty in our hearts. The players danced, the artists thrived, because the bishops kept dreams alive. They healed the sick, they fed the stray. They gave the quiet ones a say. No headlines needed, no grand parade, just quiet gifts that never fade. From the Bishop Foundation's steady hand to the